It's time that we had clear language on slavery. Like instead of saying slaves, we say hostages. Instead of saying slave owners, you say human traffickers. Instead of saying slave catchers, you say police. Instead of saying plantations, you say death camps. Instead of saying mistresses, you say them type of victims. Instead of saying discipline, you say torture, murder. Instead of saying overseers, you say paid torturers. Instead of saying trading, you say kidnapping. You know what I'm saying? Human bartering. You know what I mean? Instead of saying profit, you say theft. And instead of saying middle passage, you say that G word right there. Start replacing the words you commonly hear and read about in slavery in your head. Bookmark this reference. Start using everyday words that are relevant to you in this day and age. Stop obscuring the horror with the detached, antiquated, euphemistic terms. They are put there to desanitize us and distance us from those particular histories because you don't have the same energy when it comes to the revolution of the Americans and or remembering the Alamo. So peep game. Instead of saying, so slaves lived in plantations owned by white slave owners who hired overseers to maintain discipline, you say black families were held hostage in death camps by white human traffickers who employed torturers to torture and kill them. You see the difference? Shout out to the 5'7" black male on Twitter, the absurdist words. He really was cooking on this one. You know, instead of saying Mr. Johnson, a philanthropist, a slave owner, demanded his will that his slaves be freed upon his death, that becomes Mr. Johnson, philanthropist and human trafficker, declares that his family of black hostages will be freed over his dead body. You see the difference? It's almost like we've sanitized and romanticized the plantation in ways that make it where we can't even talk about what really happened. Instead of saying the U.S. Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Act, which obligated white Americans to return slaves to their masters' plantations, it translates to Congress passed the Escaping Black Families Act, which obligated white families to return terrified black families to death camps of their kidnappers. The prominent slave owners never publicly recognized the offspring of he and one of his slave romances, but allowed him to serve in the house. What actually happened, the rich human trafficker took advantage of his female hostage and held their son hostage as a will to his death camp that he owned. We abolished slavery way back in 1865. There's no need to still be talking about it now. What they should be saying is, even though he's only been 2 human lifetimes back to back since he had full legal to kidnap, torture, rape, and murder black people, there's no reason to still be upset. The way we talk about harm that we cause matters. The point of this video is it is reflexive of us to minimize the harm that we inflict and intend to hide the severities of that harm behind the spin and fuzzy language. And this doesn't allow for real accountability or compassion or even an apology.